Hey guys, Scott here, and today I want to talk about using Hex Rune and Pop Goes the Weasel in the same build. Because every time I do this, people always question why I do it. They don't work at the same time. Why do you do that? And I wanted to make a video explaining why it is actually still a very good build, and it's sort of like an alternative to Rune Undying. So, to me, Rune and Pop Goes the Weasel are both game delay perks, but they both have different strengths. Rune is just objectively better than Pop. I'll just say that, but the problem is Rune doesn't stay up a lot. To me, Rune is the early to mid game perk, and Pop Goes the Weasel is the mid to late game perk. Because obviously you can't use Pop as the match starts because A, there's no progress, and B, you need hooks for that to even happen, and you haven't gotten any hooks yet, so it doesn't do anything in the beginning. However, think about when you get immense value from Rune. At the start of the match, you're kind of just walking around for 30 seconds trying to find survivors, and typically when you find survivors, they're working on a generator. So you can negate the first 30 seconds of lost time spent looking for people with Rune, because as soon as you get there, they all scatter, and all that progress they just had starts going back. Because Rune makes gens automatically regress if, you're not actually repairing them. And that is extremely good. Rune is it is the best game delay perk in the game, even for killers without any mobility. Now, Pop Goes the Weasel is a perk that makes it so whenever you kick a gen after having hooked someone 45 seconds ago, the gen regresses by 25% of its total, which usually saves you about 20 seconds of gen time if it's a single person, which is also very, very good, but it has more prerequisites than Rune, which is just simply it exists as a totem and it already does stuff. So people always go, well, you can't use both of them because if a gen's automatically regressing with Rune, well, then you can't kick it with Pop Goes the Weasel. And that is true. But the thing is, it's not really meant to be super synergistic. It's different stages of the game. Rune is just meant for the beginning and the middle. Ideally, it would last to the end of the game. Look, if Rune lasts to the end of the game and you have Pop and Rune, yeah, you have 3 perks, but the Rune has gotten you so much value that it might as well be 2 perks at that point. It's kind of like Rune Undying in that way, where you're trying to keep the incredibly strong Rune up for the entire game. That is kind of the whole, that's how that works. Now, if Rune does not last the whole match, which typically it's not going to, then Pop Goes the Weasel is sort of your backup plan. And because Pop Goes the Weasel tends to start being more effective as the game goes on, because there's less and less gens, which means there's less distance to travel to actually physically kick the generator yourself. If you get 3 gen setups, then Pop gets increasingly easier to use. You're actually hooking people, so you can even use it to begin with. It gets stronger as the match kind of goes on. Whereas Rune just sort of stays consistently good but doesn't last till the end game. So I wouldn't consider Rune an end game perk just by nature of it being a totem. It is an endgame perk, but it never really lasts until the end game, so I personally don't consider it an endgame perk. It's very wishful thinking for it to be there. So really, these perks are not meant to be synergistic. They're just meant to be 2 separate stages of the match. It's like saying, well, why do you run like Noed and Haunted Grounds? They both expose you. Well, Noed is for the end of the game, and Haunted Grounds is for, during the match. They serve separate purposes despite doing the exact same thing. And Pop is definitely a backup, but it's still a very good backup that gets stronger as the match tends to go on. So they're not meant to be used at the same time. Ideally, you keep Rune up the entire match, but that's not realistic, and when it goes away, then you've got Pop for backup. So that's why I use that combo. It's basically similar to Rune Undying, where you have 2 perks dedicated, except that kind of goes all in on the Rune aspect of it. So it's just a sort of a different form of using 3 effective perks that, serve that purpose. And that's basically it. I just want to go over why I enjoy using that combo. It's basically just like Rune Undying, but a bit different. But it is an effective combo. It is good. It's not actually a joke just because you can't use both of them all the time. You can never use all of your perks all the time. They always have situational, exemptions and things like that. So I always found that to be like a weird criticism of it. It's sort of like, if you think about it, Corrupt Intervention and Pop Goes the Weasel. Corrupt Intervention is not going to do anything for you late game. Just like Rune will be gone late game, but it's going to be something that helps you a lot in the early game, and that's, it's just similar to that. So basically, they serve the same purpose, but at different stages of the game. Therefore, you treat it not as a synergistic combo, but a combo that works in stages, basically. And that is why I use that on a lot of killers, and it's not silly. It's actually pretty damn good. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Also, I'm not homeless.